Welcome back to the Phasing Line podcast. This is the show where we, every couple of years, decades, centuries, we put mics in front of our faces. Typically, it's myself, Marty, KC1CWF, my good friend Sterling, and Zero SSC, and whoever troublemaker we invite on. Sadly, Sterling has some life things, busy stuff he has to take care of right now.
Just some minor life things.
Minor life things, yes. But I found somebody to take over his role. I'm kidding. I found a guest to chat with me this week, and that is...
I've been reduced to substitute teacher.
Yes. You're not even an adult in the room. I don't even have adult supervision. Oh, this is, he's been on every podcast on the internet. All the girls are running after him. It is Neil Rapp, WB9VPG. Welcome to the world-famous Phasing Line podcast.
Thank you, Marty. I appreciate you having me on. And I haven't been on every podcast, but...
Pretty much.
A lot of them.
A lot of them. Well, that's because of your good look, smart, good humor, all that.
Definitely have a face for radio.
But you do video, too. We'll touch
once in a while.
So, Neil, I guess, is somebody that everybody knows. Everybody knows Neil in ham radio. It certainly feels that way. Neil is somebody who, I guess I would say is somebody who is actively changing radio as we know it today. That's because he is a teacher. But you came into radio a little bit younger than most people, right?
Yeah, just a little bit. And when my best friend and I would go to Dayton back in our bachelor days, I'd be walking down the aisle at Dayton, and of course, we'd be looking at stuff, and every time he would turn around, I'd be like 10 steps behind him because somebody said, "Hey, Neil, how you doing?" And starts up a conversation. It's like, yeah, it's Neil, the guy who knows everybody. It's like, I go on vacation to New York. I run into people I know. Right. I go to Chicago. I'll run into people I know. I don't know.
It's being the good-looking famous guy.
It
happens. So you were licensed when you were 5.
Yeah, I got licensed when I was 5, which was kind of my first claim to fame because that was quite a bit younger than anyone else had done it at the time. Now that record was beaten just about a year after that, actually. A guy out in Iowa, I believe it was about a month younger than I was when I got mine. Mm-hmm. Which is kind of unfortunate because I don't know if you know the story or not, but when I filled out my Form 610, which now it's 605, I didn't know how to write cursive. And so when I signed my name, I printed my name, and the FCC promptly trashed my application, and we finally figured out what happened. And so there was a 2 or 3 month delay there. But I stuck with it, and so far as I know, he didn't ever renew his license.
So you're what? You're only 4 or 5 years away from 40 years as a ham, right?
So no, I already did it. That was last year. This is 41 now.
41 years.
This is 41 years in ham radio coming up in July. And
have you been active the whole time?
Yeah. There were times that I wasn't as active. When I went away to college, I was coaching basketball and doing a bunch of other stuff. And so, I had the 2-meter rig in the car, and, I was doing a little repeater stuff, but it wasn't on HF much. And then we finally got the university club started back up. And so we had a ham shack, but it was in a mop closet, which was not at all good for the radios.
Mm-hmm.
But
was it an active mop closet?
But it was an active mop closet. There were actual air handlers that would drain water into the drain in the floor in the mop closet. So the humidity,
really like that,
the humidity was crazy. But I got a parallel dipole. We put that up. We had some VHF stuff that was already up. And so we got started. We got started back up again. We even had a remote receiver for a repeater out there for a while, and we did a field day out there. We had a great field day one year, and did a couple of years out there, and got some good stuff. So I've been, there were a few years where I was just on 2 meters and not on HF, but I've been active the whole time.
So tell me about what your first station looked like when you were first licensed almost 41 years ago.
Well, Dad had got a hold of some equipment, which is kind of what started this all. Dad was a biomedical electronics technician at the hospital there in Vincennes, and one of the doctors had kind of played around with some stuff and gave him some equipment, and one of the things was a code oscillator, and that's actually what got started. Was he got the code oscillator out of the closet and started messing around with it to see if he could get it to work. And I had to know what was making all those beeping noises. And so that's kind of where we got started. He had taken vocational electronics in high school, but he never did get his license. And so he thought, well, maybe it's time to get licensed. So he decided to take a class that was being offered by the local club, and it had a 13-year-old age limit. So he asked, hey, can I bring my 5-year-old son? He'll be quiet. He'll sit there and be good. And well,
quiet,
said, okay.
Good, and Neil Rapp. Never heard.
Yeah, I know. That's hard to believe. But yeah, so I just went with my dad, and, he took his notebook, so I took my notebook, and he had his pen, so I had my pen, and he was copying code, and I started copying code, and everybody was looking around going, okay.
That's not supposed to happen. He's 5.
Yeah, he's not even supposed to be here, but he's supposed to just be, tagging along with Dad, sitting there, and
then the guy goes data, and he goes, that's a C, and it's good little Neil, and
so one thing led to another, and I ended up passing my test on the second try, and then took the written exam and got my novice license. And so Dad had a national receiver that had these big red knobs on it. And he had a Heathkit Hot Water 101 transmitter. And so we started off on that. So we had a separate transmitter and a separate receiver. So you had to be the VFO. You had to make sure you were transmitting on the same frequency you were listening on. And then the publicity kind of started about this 5-year-old kid. And Kenwood came along and said, hey, how about we surprise Neil with a rig for his 6th birthday? We'll take some pictures. We'll put him in all the magazines and everything. We'll have you come to Dayton and sign QSL cards and do all that kind of stuff. So we were looking at a TS 820 at the time.
Ooh.
And yeah, it had a digital readout on it. Yeah. And so we were thinking about that, but they said, well, we'll give you a 520. And it's like, well, okay, if you're going to give us a 520, we'll take
the 520.
So they shipped 520. It came, and then a week or two later, Barry Copeland, who was one of the sales reps for Kenwood at the time, WB9VPG, came out, and he was a pilot. So he flew in and made the official presentation, and we did pictures and everything. And he worked for Kenwood for a few more years, and then he actually went to work for Air Canada as a commercial pilot. And so he's retired now, but that's how I got my 520. So I had the 520, and then we were getting upgraded to technician about that time. So they gave us a nice deal on a 2-meter rig, a Kenwood 7400, which I just got. It's out in the garage, actually.
To this day.
That back from Dad. And I got my 520 back from Dad not long ago. He's been clearing out stuff at home. And so I've got him. I'm going to restore the 520 just for sentimental reasons. So I'm looking to get the 520 restored. And the 7400's out there in the garage. Not sure what I'm going to do with it, but I've got them. So that's what I used until I saved up enough money to buy a TR-2500 handheld.
Ooh.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. Dad had bought a Wilson handheld that had 6 crystals in it. You could put 6 different repeaters in it.
6? That's a lot.
Yeah. And it was the smallest handheld ever. And I kept telling him, they'll have one where you can punch the frequency in. And he said, no, they'll never get a synthesizer small enough
to fit
that you
in
can punch in the frequency in a handheld. And I said, oh, yes, they will.
Now you can get smartphones with radios.
Yeah.
2-meter radios built into the side of them.
So I finally got one when I was a teenager. I finally saved up and got that. And then, this rig and that rig, and here and there every few years I'll look at something new. And then I almost went to med school. I got all the way to the interview, and they wanted me to do some other schooling and stuff. And I decided, I don't think that's such a good idea. So I decided to teach. So I went back to school for a year, got my teaching license, and was coaching basketball. But I always did a ham radio club wherever I was at. And
so that's your claim to fame today.
Yeah. So that was kind of the second round of fame, I guess, was getting involved with the high school ham radio clubs and, getting those set up and started and getting kids into ham radio. And so it's grown and grown and grown. And when I came to Bloomington South here in 2001, we got a grant from ARRL to set up a station and got things rolling, and it's just exploded.
So today you have, how many kids are members of your club?
We keep about a dozen every year. It really kind of varies, and it goes through phases throughout the year because most of our students do way too much. And so, there are seasons
in high schools around the country.
Yes, there are seasons. Kind of like it's kind of like contesting too. In the winter months when, you can't go outside and do a bunch of those kind of things, it picks up. And then in the spring, it kind of falls off. We're doing some kit building right now. So it varies, but we keep about a dozen on the list anyway.
Right. And you have a school station.
Yep, we do. Just finishing up the last few little touches on a complete overhaul of the station at K9 SOU. And we've got a nice little contesting set up. We've been doing some contesting. We've been doing school club roundup for quite a while.
Quite
and then
successfully, right?
Yeah. We've done pretty well at that, and won it a couple of times, and came in second this last time. So we've added to the station. We've built a pretty good, single transmitter contest station there. Actually, it's not K3LR or K9CT or anything like that. But
you have a lot of fun.
But for one school, one station, we've got a pretty nice little setup now, and we've done well.
So, I have to ask the question. I get this question all the time. You're a teacher, you probably get this question all the time. What the heck is going on with kids in ham radio these days?
Well, there's a lot of things going on with kids in ham radio these days. A lot of kids just haven't heard about it. And there's a segment of kids that are not interested. But there's also a segment of kids who are interested in all kinds of technology stuff. And we've found that the contesting aspect has really brought the students in. They like the idea of being competitive. They like the idea of being in a contest and trying to beat out other schools that I won't mention from Texas. And, it's turned into a rivalry kind of thing. And
Kids
they
like
really get
rivalries.
into it. Yeah, they get into it. I mean, we have our basketball rivalries and our football rivalries. Well, we've got our ham radio rivalries. They see what we do on our in-house video show each week that the school runs. They'll do a segment on us or two, and we try to publicize it on Twitter and on our homepage and stuff like that. And so they hear about what we do in School Club Roundup, and they want to get involved. And usually what happens is somebody brings along 3 or 4 of their friends. And so whenever we graduate some, I think, oh no, what are we going to do with people next year because these people graduate? And then here comes these new people.
It certainly seems to me, and I get that question probably almost as much as you get that question. I get emails a couple times a week, and my normal answer is, look, we don't have a problem. We have a you guys can't market issue.
It is to some extent. I mean, you're not going to get everybody into ham radio.
I mean, I think we see. I personally see radio's not dying. It's not going away. I personally am of the opinion that, you're not going to attract everybody, but you got to attract somebody. And old farts don't understand teenagers as much as they think they do. They're just wrong.
Well, I mean, that's always an issue, I think,
True.
And I get a little more of that because I work with students every day. So I work with teenagers every day, and so I keep up with that kind of thing a lot more than some people would, just because I'm around them every day. And if I wasn't there, I'd probably be a lot the same way, but by being there, and I think that's one of the keys to recruitment in ham radio, is you need somebody that they're familiar with. You need somebody that they know and trust and are familiar with, because kids, they don't like always to ask questions and take initiative to seek things out. They like to find things that they like and then go with it. And so I think having somebody on staff, even if it's not the control op, but just somebody that they can connect with, that they have some familiarity with. I think that's one of the big keys to getting kids involved.
Seems valid. The other thing I figured I'd mention to you is that I was talking to you the other day, and you mentioned this really interesting concept you're doing. Radio has many facets, one of which is Morse code. And you've been working to kind of take that out of ham radio a little bit. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. In our upgrade efforts, Dave Anderson, K4SV, came to us and said, hey, wouldn't an ICOM 7300 be a nice upgrade to your station? It's that touchscreen stuff, and that would connect with kids better. I'm like, well, yeah, sure. And so he sent me that, but he also sent me a Morse code training package and had Vibraplex send me a Venture set of paddles. And so, he was like, I hope you'll teach them some code. And we've had some kids that wanted to learn code on their own, and I helped them through that. And they listened to that song, Rhythm of the Code, over and over and over again. And they learned it, but we never put a class together
This is not a ham radio class at all.
Yeah. Yeah, we've done ham radio classes, but we've never done Morse code. And we've got this, they call it plus period. I don't know if you have that at your school or not, but it's a period for 45 minutes every day. And here comes the lawnmower. Yeah. Right on cue. As soon as I turn the microphone on, here we go. But anyway, we have this plus period where you can go get help from teachers and remediation and makeups.
And whatnot?
No, we don't have detention then. It's part of the school day. It's kind of like, well, the kids call it homeroom on steroids, but it's a thing where you can sign up to go see a teacher with about a particular topic. Well, not everybody needs remediation, so we have some enrichment opportunities. And so they were saying, hey, we need to offer some more enrichment stuff. So I said, okay, well, how about for 8 Fridays I do a Morse code class? Okay, that sounds cool. So I did, and we just opened it up to the whole school and said, you don't have to be a member of Ham Radio Club to do this. And we had 21 kids show up. I think 4 of them were in Ham Radio Club. But we had all these other kids who just wanted to learn Morse code because it was a secret code. It was something that they could learn that other people didn't know. And they got into that. And so they came every week on their own without any, we advertised it, but we didn't, drag them in there like, I won't mention any airlines. We didn't drag them in there.
You're going to use drag and drop technology.
Yes. No drag and drop. So they came in, and I tapped out some stuff on the phone with the Morse app, and then we started playing the Gordon West 0 to 5 words a minute code class. And when it came time to talking about radios and the code test and those kinds of things, I just skipped over those. But they learned all the letters, all the numbers, and the punctuation marks, and here and there, we threw in a little ham radio stuff. And so at the end of the class, we had a little celebration. I gave them certificates, and we had dots and dashes. We had the gummy dots, and I took Twizzlers and made those dashes. So we had dits and dahs and spelled out congrats in Morse code. And so they ate Twizzlers and dots. And then I said, and if you want to try this on the air, Ham Radio Club meets after school every Thursday. And so we'll see. We'll see if we pick up some people from that. But we've tried to do a little CW, and the kids love it. They love having another language that they can speak that not everybody else knows.
So how fast did how fast did they get up to in this class?
Oh, they're probably around 6 or 7 words a minute.
That's pretty cool. And so I guess it was. So there was a little bit of ham radio, but not enough to bore them, just enough to kind of plant the seed.
Yeah, there wasn't much ham radio. It was just flat out learning code. And one of the things that one of your other mentors, Carol Perry, and other people will tell you is that you don't convince kids to get into ham radio by saying, hey, here's a book. Let's go get
into ham radio.
Let's go study for another test and go take another test.
Yeah.
So, Carol will tell you code was something she had to basically get kids to stop doing because they wanted to send code all the time. They'd take turns sending with these little code oscillators that they made in her class. And it was like, okay, you have to stop now. We have to do other things. They wanted to do that because it was cool. And not all of them got licensed. Not all of them went on, but they knew about ham radio. They knew about what was going on. And if they don't get their license, fine. Maybe they're the people who end up on the homeowners association. Maybe they're the people who, have to do this or that can help ham radio progress, even if they're not licensed and actively participating.
Right. The general public being educated is just as important.
Yeah. So, we've licensed about 75, or we've had about 75 kids come through the program. Not all of those have gotten licensed. But through my chemistry class and through the club, we've exposed thousands of students to ham radio so that they know what it's about. And so, it depends on how you look at the numbers, because, I have a ham radio day in chemistry class every year. So that means, there's probably 100 people. Electromagnetic spectrum, because we talk about electrons and how they move in waves, and we use light and sound and radio as an example to that. So when we're talking about waves and, amplitude and
period,
wavelength and period and frequency, hertz, and speed of light, all that kind of thing, then I show them what you can do. Yeah. And, you can listen to drive-up windows at McDonald's with a handheld. You can listen to the bus channel with, a ham radio. You can listen to airplanes. You can listen to all this stuff. And, oh, by the way, there's this ham radio thing that you can not only listen, but you can talk to people.
How cool is that?
And so that's kind of the hook to get people into ham radio. And like I said, they don't all want to do it. They don't all decide to do it. They don't all stick with it. They don't all get licensed.
But the hook
But we've exposed thousands of people. But the hook is never, here's a test.
Right.
They come in, they do the contesting, they learn how to fill out QSL cards, they learn how to give an RST, which is always 5.9, but they learn how to do these things. They learn how to set up the equipment. We've done portable ops. We do a transmitter hunt every year. They love that because they can go out and drive. We do these things that are cool and fun activities to use, and then say, okay, now you can do this on your own without a control operator if you get your license. And then we have license testing at school. So again, it's not a situation where they're not familiar, because we say, well, we have testing at this church down the street.
You have to go into
Saturday
a room with all these scary men, and while they tell you what to do,
right, and they're just
on a Friday night, they don't want to be out with your friends.
Yeah, they don't want to do that so much unless they're just really into it. And so I have a couple of examiners come in, and we do it after school. And we just actually switched VECs, so we're actually providing free exams now, so we don't even have to collect the money. And we get some that way. Again, I'm not licensing hundreds and thousands of students, but the ones who are coming through have stuck it out, and they're starting to pay it back and put some help back into ham radio and into the school program too. So it continues the cycle, and we've been pretty successful at it.
I'm always impressed with what you do, and this is just another one of those impressive Neil Rapp moments. So let's change subjects here a little bit. You are now no longer the Neil Rapp school guy. You're not just the Neil Rapp Newsline guy. You're now this world famous live radio guy, internet radio guy.
Yeah, internet radio.
Internet radio.
It's not real radio, you know.
It's cool.
It's on the internet. It's not real radio. We won't.
Well, there's probably a radio transmitter somewhere.
Yeah, there is.
But this is Ham Talk Live. Tell me about it.
Yes, Ham Talk Live. With my ham radio background, got over the mic fright pretty early on. And when I was a kid, I used to take a tape recorder, which I know you don't know what one of those. No, I know you know what one of those is, but one of those old ancient things that
those are the things
had
with
these
the
magnets and this little tape, yes, that goes around in circles,
yeah.
and if you have to rewind it, you stick a pencil in it,
yeah.
and you spin the pencil around. Yeah. I'd pretend that I was a DJ, and I'd take music off the radio, and then I'd back announce it, and do all the I had my own call letters. It was WACO, WACKO. It had 5 letters, but
WACK.
Yes. Oh, yes. And so I would fill up tape after tape after tape, and Mom would be like, "You're wasting all those tapes,"
which weren't cheap at the time.
Yeah, which weren't all that cheap at the time, but I would do that, and so I got to where I was pretty comfortable behind a microphone, and so when I got to high school and it started coming time, I need to find some kind of job so I can make a little money, so I can do some stuff. They needed somebody to announce the high school baseball games, and so I said, "Hey, I can do that. That's something I can do. I've been to a few professional games. I've heard what they do. I can put some music on tape and we can play it and I can come announce." And so I started announcing for my high school baseball team. And it just kind of grew from there real quick. I was getting Little League that was asking me to come do their tournaments, and I was actually doing a little traveling to other places, and I got pretty good at it. And when I graduated, I had mentioned to one of the radio announcers that was broadcasting the games that I wouldn't mind trying to get into radio, and all of a sudden they needed somebody to work in the summer. Mm-hmm. The college had been donated a Class A FM broadcast station, and they used broadcasting students that are best of the best to fill those time slots. So they had a morning guy, they had an afternoon guy, but middays and nights and weekends were filled with students. Well, over the summer, there's only summer school and they only have a few students, so they need people to fill in, and I lived there in town. I was a townie, and so I could be available on a few minutes' notice if somebody didn't show up, because college students, sometimes they don't always show up when they're supposed to and everything. And so they said, "Well, you come in and we'll train you and we'll see how you do." So I spent a week running the audio board, learning how to queue up records and the CD players and all that kind of stuff.
Was this in the day of cart machines?
Cart machines, yes. We had cart machines.
Reel to
we
reel?
actually had we had a reel-to-reel that we used to record like contests and stuff like that. There was one or two of those canned Sunday morning shows that was still on reel-to-reel. But things were just kind of moving into CD. But the trouble with the CD players was that when you would hit the play button, there would be anywhere between about 3 and 10 seconds before the music started. And you never knew what it was going to be. And so you just kind of had to guess so that you didn't have pauses between the music. And and then they came up with these wonderful inventions, the CD cart machine that would spin continuously, so that way when you hit the button there was a 1 second delay that was constant, and so that worked a lot better. But we had the top 40 on carts, so we played the top 40 on cart machines.
It was just an AM or an FM?
This was a Class A FM.
How much power?
It was a country station, which I've never liked country music, ever. But
There's
it
one
was
thing
what
you
was
should take away
available.
from this show.
Yeah.
He doesn't like country.
Exactly. Doesn't like country music. Well, it worked. And all of a sudden, I was going to start doing the Sunday night shift, which is all those. And now here's America's top 40 country hits, and, so all I had to do is read the weather once an hour and play the carts and play the records. And that was it, So that was going to be my start. And then the midday guy got a job. And so they threw me on my first shift during the midday rush. Noon news hour with Paul Harvey and the local news. And oh my goodness, the first day I still remember my first day. It was totally nerve-wracking. Got yelled at a couple of times because I played the haircut song because I was trying to back time into news. But he's like, he's not too bad. And after a week or so, started settling in, and I became a regular. So I started doing all kinds of shifts. I did middays, I did nights, I did weekends, I did just about everything. And then I started training the students on how to run the station. And so I did a lot of that. I got my own Saturday morning sports show. But the whole time,
Sports with Neil Rapp.
Yeah, is the WFML Sports Corral with Neil Rapp. I actually have a couple of those on cassette somewhere, but kind of scary. But I wanted to, the whole time, I wanted to do talk radio. And they had a talk studio, but nobody ever used it. And the whole time I wanted to do talk radio, and I never did get to do that. I filled in on the NPR station down the hall. In fact, there were a couple of days that I was literally running back and forth down the hall to the NPR station because somebody didn't show up. And so I was actually programming both radio stations at the same time, a hallway apart, which was kind of interesting. But I got to, get into commercial radio that way. And so that was a part-time job that I did for about 3 years. I did try some play-by-play and some sports announcing on the radio too. But I always wanted to do talk radio. So fast forward to about 1.5 years ago, I'm driving around and I hear this ad for this company called Spreaker. And it's like, have your own internet radio podcast. And it's free. So I'm like, okay, well, if it's free, I'll have to play around with this and see. And it interfaced with Skype so I could take calls and do all this stuff. So I'm like, yeah, maybe it's time I start getting back into a little broadcasting again. And I'd been watching, I'd been on Ham Nation and, been listening to Don Wilbanks and Christian. And they kind of got my broadcasting blood running again and said, yeah, I'm not going to do this for a living, but I want to get back into it again.
Well, Neil, yeah, I played with Spreaker a little bit. I almost did my podcast on it. It's a super cool tool, and maybe we could talk about it a little bit more after the break. Well, we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back in a quick moment after these words. You're listening to the Phase and Glide podcast. I'm Marty. Don't go anywhere. See you in a minute. Welcome back to the Phase and Glide podcast. Yeehaw! That's an excited Marty. I'm back. I'm Marty.
That's no Marty. That's excited Marty.
That's excited Marty. I need copy. He's Neil Rapp. We're talking everything about podcast, school, being young, CW, licenses, a little bit of everything. We're getting the Neil Rapp brain dump, but we're just going to jump right into it. So you started a podcast, a weekly live radio show on the internet, 9 p.m. Eastern, Thursday nights.
Yep.
And
I did.
Ham Talk Live.
Ham Talk Live. I heard that ad for Spreaker, and the ad was, it's a free podcasting, internet radio kind of thing where you could podcast live, and you could interface it with Skype so that you could actually take calls. And I thought, well, this is my chance to start playing around with a talk radio show. And what better thing to talk about than ham radio? So I decided, hey, we'll give this a shot. I'll, talk to some of the people that I've met over the years and see if I can convince them to come on the show, and then give people a chance to call in and ask questions and to meet some of these people that maybe you normally wouldn't be able to meet. And we added Twitter, we added Instagram and Facebook and all that kind of thing to try to interface with the listeners more. And it's been a lot of fun. We're up to episode number 60 coming up this week. And we're starting our Dayton Hamvention previews. So we're doing 5 shows leading up to Dayton. About different things that will be happening either at Hamvention or associated with Hamvention. So it'll be during that weekend in the Dayton area.
And you're giving away some stuff, too.
Giving away some stuff. Yeah, Radio Waves surprised me the other day and said, hey, we'd like to give away an off-center fed dipole every week until Dayton. And so I was like, yes, we can do that. So thanks to Emmett over at Radio Waves, we've got a DX80 that we're giving away each week. This week, Tim Duffy's going to be on to talk about Contest University, which kind of ties back to the school thing. We've been able to take a group from our school the last 2 years and learn a lot about contesting and how to improve. And we've made some major improvements from all the information we learned at Contest University, and very valuable information. And so we're looking forward to that again this year. It's probably just going to be me, it sounds like, but hopefully we'll get some students going again soon. And then Carol Perry will be here to talk about the Youth Forum and the Instructors Forum. We have both of them on, or try to have them on every time. And then the next week is something that I'm really looking forward to, and we actually already recorded part of it, which, you know me, it's a live show.
Yeah.
I don't pre-record things, but we pre-recorded part of this one. We're going to have the Spurious Emissions Band on.
The whole band?
The whole band. When they got together to practice, that was our chance to get the whole band together all at once. And so we pre-recorded that part of the show. We will have some of the band on live during the question and answer call-in time. But I was able to get the interview done with the whole band, and they did some numbers for us. So we're going to have the Spurious Emissions Band on, and then Michael Coulter and some of the guys from Hamvention will be on to talk about what's new at the new Dayton Hamvention this year. And we're also looking at some of the award winners, so we'll see how that, we're still trying to work out the details on that one yet. But and then we'll do a live show on Hamvention Eve from the Spring Hill Suites in Miamisburg. So people can drop by and be a part of the live studio audience. And we'll take calls that night as well, and we'll be giving away some stuff. And really looking forward to the new Hamvention location and all the stuff with that. And most of the amateur radio Newsline group is going to get together this year. So looking forward to meeting some of these people I work with at Newsline.
So let's talk about what is Newsline and what you do briefly.
Yeah, Amateur Radio Newsline has been around since I was a kid. I grew up listening to it back when it was called Westlink Report, and Bill Pasternak, it was his brainchild to get some media out there covering ham radio, and it was a ham radio news bulletin service, and did it as a broadcaster. He was a broadcast engineer, so he would corner different broadcasters and say, hey, can you read this script for me? And started putting it together, and then started finding hams that were also broadcasters at one point or another. And so he built this newscast. And it would play on repeaters. They had it on a phone line, and you call it up, and then I started carrying it off of a satellite feed from This Week in Amateur Radio and started doing it that way. And then right when I got into doing the Ham Talk Live thing, I volunteered to start doing some recording some audio, recording some stories for them, and then they kind of suckered me into being a reporter and going out and getting some of that news. And then I said, well, now that I'm kind of settled in, let's try the anchor thing. So I'm on the anchor rotation. So every few weeks I anchor the news, and about every week I have a story that I will go interview somebody and record them and do a story. And every once in a while I just do a rip and read, where they send me a script and I just record it. But most of the time I'm out there interviewing people and anchoring and working with them. It's a great bunch of people, all news professionals or broadcast professionals, and we have a blast. We really do. And we put that together every week. And again, it's not on the phone line anymore, but it's a stream where you can put it on your repeater. And we try to keep it about 20 minutes. And you can go to arnewsline.org, and you can download the audio from there, or you can play it on IRLP or Echolink. There's some servers out there that have it. And then you can also just go to the website. But a lot of repeaters carry it, and hopefully some more repeaters will start carrying that too. And it's on shortwave and on HF too. You just got to find the times and frequencies. But
sure,
it's a news thing.
It's a news thing. You're all about the news. So before we wrap it up here, I just got to ask.
Before we wrap
it up with Neil Rapp, what's next for him?
What's coming up next? Oh my. Well, I'm kind of trying to see where the Ham Talk Live thing is going to go. We're trying to grow that and see where that's going to happen, and I'd like to get more people calling in and more people involved in that. I'd like to get that to where it's more of a conversation with the listeners than it is an interview kind of thing. But we'll see how that goes.
I'm saying that, but ham radio in general.
But I don't know. I'm kind of thinking I want to get back into the DXing contesting thing a little bit heavier. I'm thinking that maybe it's time to start looking at something digital on VHF. VHF was always my first love. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed DXing on VHF, which is kind of strange. But that's what I always wanted to do. I wanted to see how far away I could go on VHF. And so I'm kind of thinking maybe, the DMR, D-Star, or one of those two, or both maybe. I don't know. I'm kind of thinking that may be where I end up kind of going next. Mm-hmm. Kind of like to get into that a little bit more. I've done a little bit of everything at one time or another, but I haven't gotten into the digital VHF and UHF stuff. So maybe that'll be maybe that'll be next.
So much next. What's next in radio? Is it on HF? Is it SDR? Is it super het? Is it new funky antennas? Is it computers?
Well, let me tell you this. I'll try not to go on about the new funky antennas, but I absolutely love our antenna at school, and it's a stepper. It has the little stepper motors in it, and it tunes so that it's perfectly resonant, and I absolutely love it, and I think that kind of thing is going to catch on more.
SDR?
I think SDR has to be the way to go. And I have had this conversation so many times with my good friend Dr. Scott Wright, K0 MD, that, you know, I have been a Kenwood fan all of my life, probably because they gave me a TS520 when I was 6. That might have something to do with it. But ICOM's just run away with this 7300, and we've got that one at school, and I absolutely adore it.
7300, 781, 7610. It's amazing.
And the flex radios, the capabilities on those, I don't see how Super Het's going to last. I just don't. And I keep saying, oh my gosh, Kenwood's got to do something. They got to get an SDR. So we'll see. But, you know, ICOM's coming out with the 7610 here soon. It looks fabulous. You know, it's smaller, it's better. We've got all those functions, the scope, and all those things that were always, you know, just a dream. And now they're on a radio that's reasonably affordable. Yeah. And so I see SDR just taking things over. I don't see any way.
I'm always intrigued as to where the Japanese radio market is going. Is Kenwood sleeping? Is Yaesu drunken?
I don't know.
This is not a paid endorsement, but it certainly seems like Yaesu's trying, only trying, not succeeding. And I mean, I'm not worried, but I'm intrigued to the future of Kenwood. Has Kenwood stopped inventing?
Well, no, because, you know, they came out with that new handheld, and I still haven't sprung for the new handheld yet.
But I'm talking about HF.
But now that they've done that, now maybe it's time that they go in and look at the HF. And if I had to pick a rig right now, any rig, it would be a TS990. It would be a Kenwood. But that's out of my price range. And I think the SDR thing is going to bring that price range of a radio that has that kind of capability down. And I think they have to. I think it's coming. You know, we don't know that because they're, you know, obviously, you know, doing their job of developing things and trying to do things, you know, before the competition and all that kind of thing. So I think they will. I think it's a matter of time. But I sit here and go, oh, they got to do this. Oh, they got to do this. Oh, they got to do this. Because, and my best friend said this the other day, every time I get on the radio, they say they're on a 7300. I mean, it's like everybody's got a 7300. And after using one for a few months now, I get it. I get it. And this is coming from a Kenwood guy. I mean, you know, the guy who got frustrated that could not stand to sit in front of an icon because all the buttons were called the wrong thing, you know, because I was a Kenwood guy. And I always got so frustrated trying to figure out how to work the thing. And I sit down at a 7300 and it's like, oh, I can do that.
Sense.
That makes sense.
And once you use a 7300, then a 7600, a 7700, a 7800 are all similar.
So I don't know. I think it's gonna go that way. I really do. And that's a frequent question I ask on my show when I get these DXers and contesters on is, which one, and more often than not they go, SDR's getting there, and I think it's going to take over.
I think what ICOM's doing with the SDR with the knobs, I think that's there. I think that's kind of the cool stuff right now. I don't think the computer screen no knobs is here to stay yet. I want knobs.
I remember.
I want knobs.
I remember a certain person that I won't name telling me about a trip that he took to try out a new radio. And it didn't have any knobs on it. It was all push buttons. And this is way before SDR. And he walked away saying, it'll never fly. It'll never work. You got to have a knob. And so they did it again, but they put this really light knob on there, super light, trying to make, the radio light. And it just didn't have that feel. It wasn't a heavy knob. It didn't feel right. And so I'm right with you. You got to have the knob. You got to have that big tuning knob. You just got to have it. Yeah, if I want to skip to a different band or I want to skip from one end of the band to the other, yeah, I'm going to hit that touch screen and I'm going to, punch that up and go. But looking for stuff, even though I've got that scope, I still got to have that knob. I got to have that knob. Flex has answered with that. It's pricey.
Sort of.
It's pricey. And the remote control. Yeah, but you can even remote control it.
You can remote control an ICOM with the band scope.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll do that at school. But the Maestro thing, you can just carry it around with you.
And for $15,000, the whole thing for years.
Yeah. It's pricey still. It's pricey still.
It's not for me. Maybe it's for you. And 10 years from now, we'll see where it is.
I hope.
Great to have you.
I hope.
You know what?
That it's on a Kenwood, but we'll see.
You know what? I hope it's on an ICOM. But you know what I forgot to ask? I forgot to do earlier, and you're gonna have to help me do it. I forgot to beg for money.
You forgot to beg for money. Yes.
The Phasing Line podcast.
These podcast things cost money.
They cost.
I know.
Not cheap. They're not as cheap as you'd think, and we're not really support. We don't run on you, but we run on you, and we're still not breaking even yet. So, if you like this sort of thing, if you want me to do more shows, if you want Sterling and I to marry back together more often, which he will be by the end of April, hopefully.
Once he's married.
Once some work stuff gets finished up.
Oh, okay. Marty needs your support.
You know what? I want your support not once. I want your support every single month. And you can give me your support by going to patreon.com/PhasingLinePodcast. Click that donate button and say, you know what? How much money can I afford? And if that means $1 a month, you know what? I would be so grateful to you. Because that means every month I get $1. And that's one more dollar that I can save to make this show a little bit better. So consider going to our website, PhasingLinePodcast.com, clicking the donate button.
That's PhasingLine.com.
Yeah, what's that guy? Willie May, the OxyClean salesman.
Oh, Billy Mays, yes.
Billy May.
And then we have Willie Hayes that's on my show that does the commercials for things like Spray Away and Invisitina.
We need to get
the Magic Smoke Replacement System.
Yeah, we gotta get what's that name on TV? The British guy, Anthony something.
Anthony Sullivan.
Anthony
Sullivan for OxyClean.
Exactly. But if you don't want to hear Anthony Sunderman, give us some money, and you won't have to deal with him.
But wait, there's more.
If you don't want to pay monthly, you can give me money once. Once all you have to give. Go to our website, facinglinepodcast.com. Click that donate tab at the top. You can make a one-time donation doing PayPal.
And if you donate now, you'll get...
nothing. You'll get shows every week.
The eternal gratitude
you will
of
get
your
my
host.
gratitude. And if you give more than $5 a month, we'll give out your name on the internet if you want us to. But what you do does not go unnoticed. We appreciate it. We love you. And if you can't give us monetary support, you know what you can also do? Just spread the dang word, because we're not going to get bigger if you don't tell your friends. So if you don't want to give, that's typically cool. But shut us off right now. Right now. And go tell 10 of your friends. Send them to our website, facinglinepodcast.com. They can subscribe by RSS. They can download us on all the podcatchers, YouTube on the N0SSC channel, all those places. And we'll say bye-bye, 73. Thanks for joining us, Neil.
7-3, Marty, thanks, and may the good DX be yours.
All right, we will see you next week on the Phasing Line Podcast. Bye-bye for now.